Hey, I'm Brian.
I'm Kaylene.
And this is our Veggie Patch. Welcome. All right, so what we're going to do is rotate some of our beds today. We've had a change in season. Some of our crops have finished, so it's time to take those ones out, dig the beds over, refresh them, and then put a new crop in there. Because we practice crop rotation here and use the nitrogen cycle that we've explained in earlier videos, we need to look and go, what's going to go next in that bed after that particular crop has been there? Now, the easiest way to do that is we're going to go to our plan that we've drawn up with the Veggie Patch, and we're going to work out what to plant where. All right, so we're going to look at our veggie sowing planner. This is this sheet here. We've got it laminated so we can keep it clean while we're outside, and also so that we can draw on it as well.
Yep.
So this sheet helps us because it tells us which vegetables we can grow in different months of the year in our climate zone.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing we need to do, I guess, is just explain how this works. And first of all, you look at the map of Australia to work out where you live in Australia. Now, we live in Sydney, and so that's in the green zone, and so that means we are in a temperate climate. And so when we refer to the chart, we look for anything in the columns that's showing green and also in the corresponding month. So for us at the moment, we're coming into October, so we're going to be looking down this column here. There's a green being climbing. We can plant those. We can do green manure all year. We can do compost bins, of course, all year. And then other things like we can start to grow broccoli, cabbages, and so on. So in our bed, what have we got that's finished up now that we need to change over?
Okay, so I've got all our...
Whoop.
See you, River.
We've had a quick exit there from the chook.
Our broccoli, our cabbage, and our cauliflower have all finished. So they're all big nitrogen-loving plants. Next step is nitrogen in moderation.
Which is generally going to be your fruiting plants, isn't it? During winter and autumn, if you're in Sydney like we are, the fruiting plants don't really grow because they need to have warm climate to do that. Of course, if you're up north in the tropics and things, that's when you would generally grow lots of your things during winter before it gets too hot. And that's why the chart's so good, because you can work out where your area is and know exactly what to grow. So the next part in our cycle from when we've been growing cabbage and cauliflower and broccoli is we're going to be growing a fruiting vegetable in that bed. So what do you think we should put in there?
So we've got some corn that we grew from seed in our seedling tray. So we're going to pop some corn in, and we've also got some pumpkin that we've done as well, as they can be planted in October for our area. So that's what we're going to pop in those beds.
Sounds good. All right, and then we've got multiple compost bins because all of our kitchen scraps go in there. The poo from the chooks, the sawdust all goes in there as well.
Yep.
We produce this lovely rich compost, and then we add that to the beds.
Yep.
But it has kind of its own cycle as well, doesn't it, the compost bin? So we start off by putting everything into the compost bin. We use the power planter, the long one, to mix it all up and aerate it all. And then it gradually breaks down. And once it's fully broken down, then we add that into the beds to improve the soil.
Yep.
So we've got 2 bins that are empty because it's gone through that cycle.
Yep.
We've used the compost, and so now what are we going to do in that area?
So they've been resting, so they're in this rest and rejuvenation category. So now we're going to move on to nitrogen lovers, and we've seeded some celery and some lettuce in our trays, and so they're ready to plant out as they're well and truly able to plant those in October.
Great, so having the planner makes it so much easier to work this out, and the way we design this is that you've got all the information that you need on the front here, and then you flip it over and you've got the grid here for you to actually draw up your veggie patch, lay it all out so that you know what to plant next, and then you can easily work through that nitrogen cycle. So you can either get this as a digital download from our website if you want instant access, or you can get the printed laminated version like we're using here, and so you can use a whiteboard marker and texters and things to draw on that and have it all really well organized. So now I think what we need to do is get it back out in the garden again. We're going to take those compost bins off there, and then we're going to dig that bed over, we're going to add manure to it, and we're going to get it ready to put those new plants back in.
Fantastic.
All right, so our compost bins, these are the empty ones. The ones with the bricks on them are the ones that are cooking. In other words, we don't put anything more on them. And then the ones down the end, that's where we put all the new things in there. So all of our kitchen scraps. So these ones here, we have to remove these bins. So let's get stuck in and pull these out of the way. Now we've got a couple of pegs down the bottom of our bins. We drill holes in them and put pegs just to hold them down, because we put wire mesh down the bottom of the bin to stop the rats from getting in the bin. So a little tip for you, try that. So this is about a 25 mil 1-inch size wire mesh. It's enough to stop the rats getting in there. You do occasionally get mice in there. I'm not too worried about the mice.
You could go a little finer if you wanted to keep the mice out.
And so because we've had the compost bins on here and this bed is really nicely rested, we've had the nitrogen from the chook manure a bit in the bins, the watering, it all leaches down into the soil.
Yep.
So we've got really nice soil here. And I think the next thing we're going to do is to get stuck into it with the power planter and break it all up, start breaking the roots up.
Go for it, Brian.
All right, do you want to take over from that side now? All right, so we've nearly dug this whole bed over. As you can see, there's worms wriggling around on there. Generally, look, sometimes you might chop one up, but we find a lot of them actually just come to the surface, still in one piece, all wriggling around. There's a nice big chunky one there. Lots of worms in this soil because they've loved all the compost that's been above there. So we'll pop him back down over there. So we're going to add some manure to this bed because the plants that are going in love nitrogen, and manure is full of nitrogen. Now, does it matter which type of manure you get? At the moment, we've just got some sheep manure. No, I don't think it really matters. Cow manure, chicken manure, sheep manure. As long as it's aged manure, old manure, not fresh, it's all fine to use. Look at that, beautiful. Only a gardener would get excited by that. So now we're going to use the power planter again to mix all that manure in through the bed, get it ready for planting.
Awesome.
And because we're coming into summer and it's going to get a lot hotter very quickly, we want to make sure that the water will soak into the soil and not run through the cracks. And so we're using a product which is called Wetter Soil from Amgrow that we sell, and it's a granular wetting agent. And all we do is just sprinkle that on the surface, and then whenever we water, it acts as a surfactant. So what that means is it makes the water kind of, I guess, suds up, a bit like detergent, because detergent is surfactant, and it makes the water stick to the soil. So if you've got dry soils, or what they call hydrophobic soils, where the water is being repelled from the soil, I recommend you get some of this stuff and you just sprinkle it around, and you'll be amazed at the difference in how it will help the water stick, and your beds, your soil will stay nice and dark from being moist, which is what the plants love.
All right, so now we're going to plant out the plants that we had worked out before from our sowing planner. So we're going to be planting some lettuce and some celery. So we can refer to this again, so it can tell us how far there needs to be between the rows. So for instance, for the celery, we've got to be 30 centimeters apart, so basically a ruler size. And then between each plant, we're looking at sort of 15 centimeters. So roughly.
So we've got 6 celery plants in this tray here. So how about, I'm just thinking maybe we put the celery down the center of the bed, because they need to be spaced out a bit. And then we'll put, say, the lettuce on one side of that.
Sure.
Does that sound all right?
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to take them out of the tray very carefully. We'll start with the celery. Now with the trays, in order to loosen the plant, all you need to do is just squeeze gently underneath there, like that, and that just releases the plant so that you can pull it out from the top there quite easily. And we want to try and not disturb the roots, so keep them in contact as much as we can.
So with the soil level, make sure the soil level is the same as the height of the soil level for the seedling as the height of the soil in the ground. So you don't want to bury it.
And we've got our little label here, so we're going to put the label at the end there so we know what has gone in there. And so this lettuce that we're putting in is a perpetual lettuce, so that means that we can keep harvesting the leaves as it grows, because we love lots of salad during the warmer months, don't we?
So we're planting out the lettuce now, and basically it just says so spacing of 20 centimeters and rows of 20 centimeters. So nice and easy.
So we should do the lettuce away from the celery, because the celery is going to really bush up there. So if we said that there's a 30 centimetre row between the celery, ideally we want to do something similar over to here. So let's put the lettuce over towards this edge, and then it's going to grow in that space just there.
Sounds good.
And now we've got the seedlings in, the next most important thing to do, of course, is to give them a bit of a water. Just a gentle water from the hose, but they're going to need water straight away because the soil is relatively dry, and so it's going to dry the seedlings out even faster. Now often we get asked about whether we should apply mulch onto there, and sometimes we do. We'll put a sugarcane mulch or a lucerne mulch or a straw on there. The one little tip though is if you're going to use something like sugarcane mulch, it does tend to suck the nitrogen out of the soil, so always sprinkle on some extra manure or pelletized manure onto the surface before you put the mulch down, and it won't affect the plants then. So if you've ever noticed that you put mulch down and your plants tend to go a bit yellow, that's why that's happening. Now we know that snails love to munch on lettuce, so we need to protect those, and the way we're going to do that, of course, is use the snail beard trap. So we've got one positioned in the bed here. We put a little bit of beer in it, the snails crawl in and the slugs crawl in, and they drink up and have a very happy death. So there's going to be a lot of drunk snails probably here tonight. So that's how we protect the bed without having to use snail baits. All right, so it looks like this bed is done. We can move on to the next one. Now this bed has had broccoli growing in it, and because we have white cabbage moth that love to lay eggs on the broccoli and caterpillars hatch, we need to put netting over it. So for our next crop though, we don't need netting, so we're going to take the netting back off again. So often people ask, should I have my whole veggie patch netted? Well, I guess you could, but then your bees are not going to be able to come in there as well. So we only net things that actually need netting, for example, the brassica crops. So let's pull all this off now.
Good.
And in one of our earlier videos, I think it's episode 3, we go through and show you how to make this frame if you wanted to do this for yourself out of galvanized tube. It's pretty simple to do. All right, so now we're going to pull the broccoli out because we're at the end of the season for this broccoli. On the chart, it actually says that we can start sowing broccoli again, but that's going to be new seedlings. These ones, though, basically have finished, so they need to go out. Now, we've got one of our new canvas garden bags. This is a new product that we've just added to the collection there, and fantastic for putting all these prunings in. And because we're going to put all of this excess leaves and stems and roots into the compost bin, we're going to be cutting them up, because the smaller the leaves are, the smaller that you chop it up, the faster it breaks down into compost. All right, we'll take the snail trap out of there. Oh, looks like we've, yep, there, that's not a very nice mix. There's definitely some dead snails and things in there. Nice little brew, cup of tea maybe. So we'll just tip that over to there. It's done its job. We might add it back in again later for the next crop that's going to go in. And I think what we need to do now is, because we're doing rotation, and remember this bed was a nitrogen lover, then we're going to add, the next crop's going to be something that's fruiting. So what did we say we're going to put into this one?
So we're going to put, we've got some corn and some pumpkins. So yes, so it depends what you want to put in this one.
Okay, so that means we don't really need to add any nitrogen to the bed, because we're following, we want the bed to gradually get depleted of nitrogen. So the next crop after this is going to be a root crop, and it needs hardly any nitrogen. So all we really need to do here is just dig this one over and ready for planting. That's right.
Awesome.
Now it's also potato planting time for us in Sydney. And last year we grew potatoes out in our actual veggie beds. And we used a technique where we had most of the soil out of the bed, and then we planted the potatoes and then put straw on top of that, didn't we? And so then the straw protects the potatoes from the sunlight, which stops them going green, and you get a nice crop. But we're going to do something different this year. We're going to make use of these potato bags, which make it a lot easier. The reason why is because as they're growing, you can actually kind of pinch potatoes from the little pocket that's in the side of the bag. And so you get small potatoes, and then later on you get big potatoes. It's fun. It's a very simple process. So this first bag here, I planted up a couple of weeks ago, and you can see the potatoes have already sprouted up the top here, and they're growing really well. So what I'm going to do is, as those leaves get up to about this point here, then I'm going to fill this all in with soil and bury the leaves and just leave the top sprouting leaves showing. And the potatoes are actually going to all grow in that area that I've buried. We just lift the little flap on the side and we reach our hands into the soil, and then you can actually pull the potatoes out and leave the plant growing for it to keep producing. So I think it's a fantastic idea. These are made of felt. They're designed to last for a long time outdoors. We've got a really nice, good quality one made for the potato planter bags. And so we're now selling these on the website as well. So great, easy way. There's two sizes. This is the small one here, and then the one beside me here is the larger one. These are also great if you want to have a go at growing on a balcony. If you haven't got a big yard, so you can actually grow your vegetables even in the potato planter bags, you could. But otherwise, this one's got the flap on the side. It's even got a little feature there where it actually hooks back on so you can harvest there. Very clever design.
Yeah.
Very clever.
Very cool.
All right, so we're going to put some potatoes into these bags and show that process of how to do that.
Yeah.
So we've got some seed potato here. Now, you can use seed potato. It just means that it doesn't have any viruses in it, so it is good to use. But if you've got some old potatoes in your cupboard that are starting to shoot, you could use those as well. A lot of people do that. Because you want them to look kind of like this they're pretty ugly, aren't they? We want them to have all these shoots coming off the sides there. That means they're really ready to plant out. And so we just grab a few of those and then we put them into the soil. So I'm burying them down a little bit. You can see I've only filled the soil up to about 1/3 of the way in the bag, and we've buried the potatoes in there, and then the plants will grow up to about this high, and we pile the soil up to this high then, just leave the top shoots growing, and then the potatoes are actually going to grow in this area and we can access it through the flap in the side. It is important that you keep piling the soil back up again, otherwise the potatoes go green. You can't eat those because they make you sick, all right? And potatoes do like a bit of feed because it gets those initial leaves sprouting, and so we're going to just give them a bit of the Amgrow vegetable and herb and just sprinkle that on. Keep in mind this is a concentrate, so you don't want to overdo it. Just put a little handful in each one, will be fine. And then just to finish off, we just need to water them in. You don't want to overwater them because we don't want the potatoes to go rotten. These bags do have drainage holes in the bottom of them to get the water away as well, but just keep that in mind and then you should see potatoes sprouting within the next couple of weeks. These are our new planter bags that we got made up. They're a felt fabric that's designed to last really well outdoors. They've got handles on the side. Of course, we've got the other planter bags that we sell, the really big ones that are the huge ones. So if you want to do beds like what we've done in our garden, that's a fantastic option. Or if you need something a bit smaller, especially if you've got like a balcony or something, this would be ideal.
Backyard.
Courtyard.
Yeah.
Then these felt planter bags would be the go. And you just fill them up with soil and plant them out. We've just planted some silver beet into this bag here. You can move them around as well. Probably take two people to lift them, but they are easy to move around. And so this is a new product that we've just added to the website now.
All right, so that's a wrap for this episode. So hopefully you've got a grasp of what you need to plant in your beds now, and you've rotated those beds nicely and getting the new crop growing.
That's right. So if you haven't already got one of the Veggie sowing planters, hopefully you'll have seen this episode. It makes things so much easier. So you can get that on the website. Either get the digital download or get both. You can buy the digital download and the printed laminated version, which I highly recommend you get so that you've got the nice A3 poster there as well. So we covered quite a bit in today's episode. Have a go at planting your potatoes if you're in a zone that potatoes is suitable at the moment, and then practice your crop rotation. Ask questions in the Facebook group. There's no such thing as a silly question in that group. We welcome people from beginners to advanced. Everybody's welcome. So thank you for watching and joining in again. Until the next episode, happy gardening.